I'm Dylan Ratigan. I've interviewed nearly every CEO and most world leaders during the past 25 years. And now I'm bootstrapping. I'm turning my attention to the new CEOs and the irrepressible entrepreneurs leading the next generation of innovation in the world. Welcome back to Tasty Live. I am Dylan Ratigan. Time for a little bootstrapping. My guest, Richard Demerjen, the company TCCI, the business compressors in the supply chain for both an internal combustion motor vehicles, large and small, as well as electric vehicles. Richard, a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Dylan.
What makes a competitive compressor technology? Why you? Why are you the compressor man as opposed to someone else?
Right, so we focus on the commercial industry, so not really automotive. So most of the competitors in this industry are large, multi-billion-dollar automotive companies that are supplying the General Motors and the Toyotas huge volumes, and they generally just give that compressor to the construction guys like Caterpillar or the over-road guys like Navistar. So we specifically design our product for those commercial vehicles. So long haul, we do 150,000 miles in a year, where a car will do that in a lifetime.
And so basically, your compressors are much more durable and customized to a much heavier utilization, like just a more demanding environment. Is that too simple?
No, that's right. We like to design our product for people that earn a living or need those compressors that have to work. So in the case of military, we do the joint strike vehicles, and that have 6-inch bulletproof glass on them, and you're not rolling those windows down if your air conditioning or thermal management system goes down. So those compressors have to work.
And so who are your biggest customers then? Is it the military? Is it commercial logistics and infrastructure? How does that play out for you? And are you dependent on one category, or are you able to spread it around? Because there's a lot of industrial activity. Right. It sounds like industrial and military would be your sweet spot.
Well, actually, military comes and goes. So like during 2008 and 9 with the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, we were really busy, but then after that, it quieted down. So the way we look at the military is, we're there, we're supporting those vehicles, but it's really it's ebbs and flows. You can't design a business for us around that. So, and we're around the whole commercial sector. So transport refrigeration, where we do Thermo King and Carrier's transport refrigeration stuff. We'll do over-the-road trucking. So we're Volkswagen Group's, Traton's main supplier for compressors. So that's Scania, MAN, Volkswagen Truck and Bus, and Navistar here in the US. Caterpillar for construction, as well as Case New Holland, Bobcats. And then for agricultural, again, Case New Holland, John Deere, AGCO. So we're really spread across the entire commercial vehicle sector.
And so then what dictates your growth rate?
Well, certainly as interest rates are a big deal. So right now we're seeing a little bit of slowdown in agriculture and construction, where they're waiting for, interest rates are coming down, farmers to buy new equipment. So that certainly.
But so your growth rate is a function of capital expenditure on new gear.
Correct. Yeah. So
and
how
global
quickly,
economic activity.
Exactly. So fleets changing over their new vehicles. Aftermarket is also a significant portion of the business. So to some extent, as those vehicles stay in the market longer, our aftermarket tends to pick up a little bit. But then as economies change and people are upgrading to the next series of vehicles, so when a new engine standard by the EPA comes out, there'll be a flux of buying just before that, and then it'll quiet down a little bit because those engines generally tend to be a little bit more expensive. And then as maintenance, so total cost of ownership is something we really use a lot in our terminology. So as the vehicles get older, maintenance creeps up, and then it starts justifying more for buying new vehicles.
Mm-hmm. And how does the transition to EV, the basically the new platform, affect the compressor component of the vehicle? And is the compressor largely for basically the air conditioning, heating? I mean, is it basically for the comfort of the cabin, or does it have an additional utilization in a car or in a vehicle?
Yeah, great question. So, a belt driven is tied to the engine. You're basically there for the comfort of the operator to keep him at a certain temperature, and any electronics that are in that cab nice and cool, and that goes a long way for keeping the operator attentive. And when it gets hot in those cabs, they tend to lose focus, get tired. So that's really important from a safety standpoint. As we get into electric now, battery thermal management is vital. So those batteries have to be kept at a very narrow bandwidth, 25 degrees C, plus or maybe 5 degrees. So and when they're charging, they heat up. You got to take that heat away. There's cooling loops around those batteries. And generally, we have a separate compressor just for the battery thermal management and a separate compressor for the HVAC side of it.
So the EV platform is actually a good for you. More
It
compressors.
is, yes. So we see from two areas of that. One, business growth, where you're selling two compressors, obviously, other than just one. And the compressor is more integral into the whole thermal, into the management of the vehicle. So where the belt-driven compressor just has a clutch, it's going on and off with the engine. We don't really control a whole lot there. With the EV side, we have our own software, our controller, our motor, the pump side of it, and we're really integrated in with the whole CAN bus system of the vehicle, so we can slow down, speed up, regardless of what that vehicle is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As you look at the EV piece, well, let me ask this a different way. Why is it that the massive auto parts compressor manufacturers either don't buy you or displace you?
Right. So, great
Particularly
question.
if we're going to the double compressor, the compressor market sounds like it's getting better, not worse, with the EVs.
Right. Yeah. So great question. It's from a don't bias standpoint. Well, we're privately owned. It's my family, my brothers and sisters. My dad started the company, and we've been approached in the past, but we're really ingrained into the business. We're the second generation. We've got third generation in this business, and we're really looking out for our employees, our communities, and really want to create something here from a long-term standpoint. So we really haven't entertained, buyouts. We're really not that interested in that perspective. On the standpoint of why don't these behemoths, the Denzos that are part of Toyota, $70 billion, and the Malas and the Delphis, why don't they compete better in here? Because they struggle with the commercial volumes, with the commercial requirements. They just want to produce the same compressor down a production line, 500,000, 2 million units a year. For us, Caterpillar may have 1,000-piece volume, and then we need to switch and run a Navistar product that's 5,000 pieces, and then go to CNH that's 1,500 pieces. So they really struggle at being able to build flexibility like that in. They also don't want to design the durability, the long durability that you have to design in for a commercial application into an automotive, which is, really cost conscious down to the pennies where these guys are competing. We met with General Motors on the electric side. They were interested. Our head of our technical expert came from GM, was their compressor technical expert, helped design all the electric compressors that they're using today in systems. And we met with them, and they kind of asked us, what's the life of your compressor? We said, hey, we designed for 45,000 hours or 2 million kilometers. They kind of laughed at us, which is, really well over designed for their needs.
You produce these in the United States in a U.S. factory.
We produce globally, so
Okay.
our main manufacturing, we went to China in uh, 2005. We've been in there since the early 90s. We produce out of India, and we're currently undergoing a $45 million renovation of this site in the US for EV manufacturing, as well as adding a climate center with a vehicle tunnel in here and a education piece that we're teaming up with our local community college and state universities.
And what's the unit volume a year per year of your all the compressors that you produce?
We produce in the 1 to 2 million year range.
Mm-hmm. And how much variance is there going to the Toyota conversation? You know, of your, let's say you're doing 2 million or 1.5 million compressors a year. Is that 10 different kinds of compressors, 100 different kinds, 1,000 different kinds?
Yeah. So we have about 5 different technology families of compressors. So whether it's a wobble plate or a swash plate, scroll, variable, and then within those categories, there's probably 10 different displacement sizes. So size ranges in there.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like demand for your product is a version of a macroeconomic indicator? Like, do you, having been around this business for a while, do you feel like when you see demand pick up, it's that the economy is getting stronger, that the industrial economy is getting, or do you feel like it's really more a function of where we are in the equipment cycle of the installed base?
Yeah. So we look at like market share increase and demand increase in a couple ways. We actually see where in 2008, when we had the huge downturn, we pick up market share. So we always are kind of stable or growing because we're looking to pick up market share in downturns. Right now, we're seeing a softening, and because of that softening, our commercial customers are coming to us and saying, "Hey, you know, we need help here. Can you help us design this?" So their engineers are either swamped or loaded, or they're looking to switch away from applications that they are older. Maybe they're grandfathered in with some of those automotive guys and they want to move to our compressor, and now's the time to do it. They're looking for cost savings. We really try and keep that conscious. Our motto is, hey, the more cost effective we can deliver our product to customers, the more vehicles they're going to sell and the more compressors we're going to sell. Mm-hmm. So we always try and bring that mentality to our customers and helping drive down that total cost for them. But certainly as we pick up market share, when we see economic growth, when we see things start picking up, trucking start picking up, you know, farm prices improving, so you get farmers investing more, we see a bigger lift then in our business.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I was going, because I feel like you have theoretically and in reality, you for sure have some visibility to trucking activity, I'll call it, however
Mm-hmm.
writ large, and some visibility to agricultural activity, right? Whatever that may be, and however precise or imprecise that is. But do you feel like you have any more insight than anyone else as to whether the U.S. economy is going to have a recession, for instance? Like, do you feel like you have historically been like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a recession because whatever, or really that your guess is as good as anybody else's when it comes to the sort of the overall health of the American economy?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think from our standpoint, commercial vehicles, certainly as we see traffic picking up, we feel that. We felt the economy, you know, when everybody said, hey, there was going to be a recession 4 or 5 years ago, we still saw trucking strong, agricultural strong, and that really helped us say, you know, nothing is going wrong. During COVID, we had customers coming to us and saying, look, dealers don't have inventory. We're running flat out. Even if there's a slowdown, dealers need product. We're going to continue to run at this. Don't slow your production down. So what we're seeing now is, I think dealers have inventory. We're seeing not great, huge amounts like overblown inventory, but we are seeing a little bit of softening in some of those ag and construction sectors. I think it's really driven by interest rates. Europe is ahead on the EV side than the US. So we see a lot more EV activity in Europe because they have instituted like mandates of vehicles moving over. And the Ukraine war really disrupted things for a lot of our customers that were getting product from Ukraine about a year and a half ago, but they've pretty much recovered from that. So things are relatively stable there. I think that we see that insight. We look at scrap as well, and scrap prices to us, that's a leading indicator of what's going to happen in our markets, because scrap metal is a big part of the manufacturing of these vehicles. And so we really look at that scrap market as when it's slowing down or when it's picking up as leading indicators for us.
And how does that, do you have where is scrap right now, for instance, relative to historical highs and lows?
I think it has been coming down in price. We're seeing that softening a little bit. So I would say that when we look at that, we're seeing that things are softening. It started softening in the scrap market maybe 6 months ago, and we're kind of seeing that now happening on some of the vehicle side. Trucking is still relatively stable, though. So,
and then I guess my last question would be, from everything we've discussed, it sounds like the EV transition is the real boom for you, because you go from one compressor per vehicle to two. I mean, it sounds like EV is an opportunity for your business to double, literally.
It is, and the compressors are certainly more expensive than the belt-driven compressors. So, usually a couple times more, because you have a controller in there, you have a motor in there rather than just a pump with a clutch. So, they're more expensive. They take a lot more engineering, though. We've increased, since 2018, our embedded engineering, software design, our electronics design, our motor design, went from almost non-existent to, we have significant engineering resources in the US and in Asia.
Richard, it's a pleasure. I always like to learn about these specialized businesses. It's an interesting world in which you live. I appreciate the time today.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan.
All right. Richard Demerjian, the company TCCI. I am Dylan Ratigan. You're watching Tasty Live. This has been Bootstrapping. We'll be back with more after this.